Xexyz, the space action adventure. And welcome to Nostalgia, a chronological exploration of every NES game released in North America. I'm Mike.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Joe.
Xexyz, and I believe we made this joke at the end of last week's episode, kind of sounds like sexy, and, there are some space fairies just chilling in bathtubs in this game, so I guess, I just conflicted, was it intentional to sound like that, or is this really, one of the first games you can think of where they just didn't bother to change whatever the title was in Japan, and it sounds very Japanese?
I'm pretty sure Xexyz is just an early member of Organization 13, if anyone is a Kingdom Hearts fan.
So what would be their original
I don't know.
name?
I didn't think that part through. What would that
Right.
be? There's two X's, so do you just get rid of one of them, I guess?
Yeah, you just get rid of one.
So just be, I think it'd still be Xexy.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard of the mid 2000s movie Xexyz Road?
Absolutely not.
No.
Okay, yeah, it's spelled ZYZZYX and then Road. It was released in 2006, and it had Katherine Heigl and Tom Sizemore in it. And I think its main claim to fame, aside from having an unpronounceable title, is its box office gross was $30. So when I started playing this game, I just kept thinking of Xexyz Road. And, who came up with this title? What was the idea? Were they just trying to be at the bottom of all the catalogs because people would flip there? It definitely doesn't mean anything.
I feel like you could get to the bottom of all the catalogs without going Xexyz. You could just, start with a Z and you're probably at the bottom.
So that's probably a box office record too, right? Or maybe there was a movie that didn't sell any tickets.
I'm sure it's possible. Actually, no. Just looking at Wikipedia right now, apparently, there are other films that have lower grossing box office figures, but that must mean zero, right?
Yeah, it's up to Nostalgia the movie to break the record and make no money whatsoever. It's just the podcast, but we just put all the episodes together
with no video.
Yeah, well, no, there would be a video component. It just wouldn't be related at all, so there'd be no reason to watch it.
Or it could just be us recording. It could just be a video of me sitting in my closet right now, because that's where I record, if you can tell by my audio quality.
But just the back recording. Of you.
Yeah. Someone, I don't even know I'm being recorded. Someone has to film me secretly.
It'll be the next Skinmarink.
Yeah.
The end of the catalog, though, is probably the closest explanation I can think of, Sean, for the title of this game, and not to harp on it, it's not that bad of a title, and it does sound like it's maybe a different English word. But if you look at some of the games we played recently, Wrath of the Black Manta, WCW wrestling, like people know what WCW is. There's some tie in there. Super C, they might not know what C is, but super is a cool word. So you just think wow, C, it's C, but it's better. Snoopy's Silly Sports Spectacular, again, another IP that everybody knows. For the most part, though these games, you kind of know what you're getting, and Xexyz, you have no idea what you're getting from that title, and we didn't bring this up at all with a game like Xanadu, so maybe it was always an issue with games, and I'm just thinking of a recency bias, but I just thought, I probably would have never bought this game just because of the title.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does tell you one thing, and that is that it's going to have some, techno component. These stupid words don't happen unless you're trying to get across space adventure, except in the case of Xexyz Road, and I'm pretty sure it was just a drama film. But that's what I usually get from these weird letter salad titles.
Yeah, I immediately thought shmup, and which obviously isn't completely wrong, but this is definitely more than shmup is not the main. Well, I don't know. Whatever. This is more than just a shmup. There's a lot more to it. I wouldn't consider this as solely a shmup. But yeah. Like, what else have we had? Like, what am I thinking of? Another X name that was a shmup. Xevious.
Xevious was, absolutely. All right, and then, the back of the box said the space action adventure. So, Joe, maybe if they just changed it to the shmup action adventure, they would have satisfied all of your genre requirements for what the game actually is, because it is a shmup. It does have action platforming, and it's also kind of an adventure game with some light, I don't want to call them RPG, but at least there's, dialogue and a world and
there's
some
currency system.
Yeah, exactly. There's some form of exploration, even if it is just like once you leave the level, you've left it for good. So that's kind of cool. But before we talk about the actual game, I wanted to go over the story, because obviously you don't get a name like Xexyz without a very interesting story included in your manual. And so I'm going to just read the beats. Feel free to interject. I'll kind of leave a little pause if you feel like you have something worth saying. But Xexyz takes place in the year 2777, and I wondered, do you say 2777? That's long. Or
No,
do you say
it's 2777?
Yeah, 2777. It's the year 2777, and Earth is now in a totally different atmosphere. Is that possible? First off, can that happen?
What does that mean? Like, the atmosphere of Earth has changed? Or like we
I
moved
guess.
to another atmosphere?
I took it as the atmosphere has changed, because I,
think
don't
that's
think you
very
can
possible.
move to
Oh
another
yeah, it's
one.
entirely possible.
Yeah.
Even in the prehistoric times, like, we had too much oxygen and made all the bugs big. Read it up. Look it up in a book.
I imagine that this new atmosphere is a result of the numerous nuclear wars / natural disasters, which can definitely happen, especially by the year 2777. Because they're imminent right now, and as a result, the population has decreased dramatically, and all of the continents of Earth and all the landmass has been reduced to just 5 small islands, and those 5 islands formed a nation where, for hundreds of years, people lived peacefully. Can you guess the name of that new nation?
Is it Xexyz Road?
Same ballpark. It's Xexyz.
Ooh.
That's what the name of the game is. The nation that all of the remaining humans of Earth live on.
It's kind of nonsensical,
Yeah. It's like, why aren't there like 5 nations? Like, don't you think the islands would kind of become tribe-like and not want to interact with one another?
Adopt an element.
Yeah. There you go. It always goes back to Avatar.
It's funny to think about, like, it being, and like, if all that that exists is one nation, is it even like a nation? Is it just
I
like
thought
everything?
about that. Yeah. We don't need to get into the weeds.
Yeah.
Earth exists in a totally different atmosphere because the Earth is now Xexyz. That's the new name of the Earth.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I'm just making that up.
I know.
Okay, so at Xexyz, aside from human beings, maybe as a result of the nuclear wars, it's not made clear, there are also fairies and spirits who, kind of have magical, mystical powers and kind of keep everything in balance, blah, blah, blah.
They take a lot of baths, too, right?
They have to keep clean and pure.
Mm-hmm.
They're washing away the sins of the humans that live alongside them.
Ooh.
But one day, Xexyz was attacked by the mechanic fortress Goruza from outer space. Xexyz did not have many weapons to fight back and was forced to surrender. So here's where things start to get weird, because now you're introducing aliens attacking Earth again, and it feels like everything I said before this wasn't necessary. Like, just make it another planet, or just have something with all of a sudden, the fact that aliens invaded Earth is all of a sudden a lot more interesting, and it doesn't have to take place in the year 2777. I can't say that right every time.
Okay, just think 1776, but more.
The whole time you were describing that, I was like, that's interesting that they like made it just like there was nuclear war. There's not like an enemy that did this, and then it's just like, and then the enemy came. It's like,
wait, is this just the plot of Battlefield Earth?
And so now the game starts to kick in because all of this is just, implied. You would never know it. So the game is that Goruza has built these castles on each island, captured the queen fairy from each island, and, you have to go rescue them across the 5 islands. And you rescue them as the battle soldier. That's what they call it in the manual. Battle soldier Apollo. And that's where the game kind of kicks off. Now we can talk about, I guess like there is a way to break this game down, but maybe it's more fun to just talk about Apollo first before you get into the weeds.
Yeah, you're kind of just a faceless, cyborg soldier, right?
Absolutely. I mean, cyborg though, or is he just wearing a cool suit?
He's wearing a cool suit, but Xexyz cyborg. It sounds right.
Yeah, he's not. He gave me what is I'm blanking on the most obvious game. Sean, you love this game.
Is it bigger than a bread box?
It's kind of like a shmup, and then it's similar to this. It's like shmup, and then levels where you're running around as a guy in a suit.
Oh,
what the heck is it?
Yeah,
The Guardian Legend?
No, it's God damn it!
It's a very well-known game.
Blaster Master.
Blaster Master. Gave me Blaster Master vibes. A long road to get to that statement.
I didn't get those vibes, but I do know where you might.
I got the vibes from the character.
Yeah, you're right. I get that. Yeah, looks very Blaster Master-esque. But the game as a whole, the character as a whole. I didn't read the manual. I did see the year that it was supposed to be. I was kind of confused that you go into a lot of rooms with people in them in this game, and they all kind of just take your presence as a matter of course. You talk to frog kings and robot scam artists and the fairies in bathtubs, and I was like, oh yeah, just so you know, you're gonna need this key to go forward. And where do you know me? Am I fulfilling a prophecy? I couldn't tell.
Yeah, I think that they could have done a little more flavor text with those things, because really it's no different than an early JRPG or even Zelda or Zelda 2, where it's you go in and these people are giving you something, but this game, it doesn't give you any. I guess it just needs some context of am I walking through a town and they're oh, our hero, help us with this, or it's just I'm the next NPC, I'll give you your next item you need.
The only context clues I could really get was you kind of start off each level in nature, and then you move on to the techno castle, and it's okay, I get it, nature versus technology, this is the evil place, but I didn't really understand everything going on. But I also
I will say that at least with some of those weird NPC encounters, a lot of them were you can buy it by the fact that a lot of them are you want information, pay me for information, or they have a shop or whatever. It's the people that are just hi Apollo, here's $100. That's a little weird, which is a lot of those.
And kind of the way that Apollo as a character functions, is a little bit on the rigid side for controlling. And I guess what I mean by that is both in his jump, which seems fine at first, he has an awkward fall in the jump where he gravity's harder on Earth than it was when I was alive.
With the atmosphere and everything.
Yeah, exactly. So it has a weird fall function to it. But also the way that all the enemies in this game work, every single enemy has, and this is going to sound weird, but it has motion attached to it. And okay, no big deal, right? Enemies standing still is kind of boring. But I'm not talking about just walking towards you or running towards you. They all have some kind of shmup-like behavior, even in the platforming sections, where they just kind of lunge at the areas ahead, or rather behind you, towards you. And so I found myself always in need of having to shoot because you don't know what's coming up and you don't know which direction it's going to kind of launch out at you on, and there's no consequence to not shooting. So I found myself doing a lot less of the desired platforming of those stages and more just, shooting always, whether I was in the shmup stages or in the adventure stages, whatever you want to refer to them as. And I just felt like that was, I don't know, a weird choice for a game that has different verticality to it and areas that you can kind of go into, and as you guys were mentioning, have dialogue encounters with people where they'll either give you tips, give you resources, or whoops, psychs, it's actually a bad place and you gotta fight these dudes. I don't know if like that's really like a huge complaint about the game or just something that you get used to over time, because I certainly wrote it down early in my notes that like, yeah, I'm constantly firing, but I guess, in most shmups you're constantly firing too, right?
Yeah, I think what's going on here is two things. You did mention that the movement felt strange, and I agree with that. It also, until you get the wing boots, and then like it actually feels like something that you can kind of play with instead of fight against. But that's something else. I think what else sort of contributes to this is that I don't know if it's a hitbox thing or if it is just all of the enemies moving in a certain way, but it always felt like if I just shot at an enemy, like it's not 100% that it's going to hit, or like it'll just shoot just over the top of their head or like just under their jump arc. It just felt very it wasn't even difficult. Difficult is the wrong word. Do you know what I'm kind of saying? Like, it just kind of felt janky.
I know what you're saying. I don't know if I saw it that way. I guess I saw it that way in some for different reasons, like not like almost intentional reasons, where like depending on what weapon I had, I felt like I was missing enemies because I was missing enemies, like not because of the hitbox. There's that like bouncy weapon, and which like it's kind of cool in some scenarios, but kind of terrible in other scenarios. And like, I don't know if that was intentional or not, but like, yeah, there were times like that where I was like, well, I got to like really figure out how to line myself up to hit the enemy. And sometimes you don't have a lot of time for it, but I don't know if I noticed like jankiness from the firing, but it definitely feels different than other games than that we've played to me. But going back to Mike, to your point too about the about like constantly shooting, I guess now that you have brought that up, I do see that like that seems totally true, but it didn't stand out to me as an offense as I played it. Like it didn't seem to me like it hindered, and I'm not sure if this is even what you were saying, but like that it hindered any of those like vertical moments or any of the platforming. It felt like in a good way, I was playing a shmup where I got out of the ship and could walk around, instead of flying a ship. And
I guess just to clarify, like I brought up that whole idea of just like, oh, it just feels like I always have to be right off. I have to shoot like right off of where I would be. That made me just keep shooting.
So the very first level that you're in, again, as Sean mentioned, you start off in like the wilderness and then work your way into the castle. That's the first level, and those are the like odd numbered levels, and then the even numbered levels are the shmup ones. But it goes further than just being like, okay, it's platformer shmup level. I'm really not sure I would call these levels, these odd numbered level ones, the platformers, because while there's certainly a lot of jumping and obstacles in your way and stuff like that, there's also it's not just a side-scrolling kind of level. You need to collect certain things in order to progress, and you need to talk to people, or rather pay people money to figure out what to do. And so I was having this dilemma about if it was just a straightforward platformer, right? Then it would just be, start at the left, walk to the right, make sure you don't die, and just get inside the castle, and that's all fine. But if it's an adventure game, then it's also just kind of weird that it's all happening in a side-scrolling fashion, and that there's not really a larger role in what you're doing with the environment. And if it's just an action game, I guess that's the closest that these kinds of stages come to. But then the puzzle solving, I guess, is what bothers me, because in great puzzle solving games, it's move this, use this, find this to move on. And in this game, essentially you're just paying people your energy credits or ball credits or whatever they're called in order to find out the clue if you didn't just happen to stumble across it. And so that's just not even satisfying. And so I guess I'm looking for what's the solution here for the completion aspect of these stages. Should they have just made it so that you just have to get to the end of the stage? Should they have made the identifiable thing that you need, like more required to like complete a specific objective that is relayed to you at the beginning of the stage? What are your thoughts?
I did think that it was very weird that there's this extra step. You can't enter until you've done the thing. And the thing is usually shoot a star square. And I usually just accidentally ended up doing this because, again, you and I, Mike, were just spamming shoot. And you just have to shoot a thing like 5 times, and then it will open a door to get the thing you need. So it seems like padding. It seems like filler. And it's not like showing you anything new. It's just extending the level.
Yeah, when I first got to that, it's the very first level, when I got to the end of the level and then realized that like I missed something, and I know one clue said to shoot one of the star boxes 5 times to open a door. I was like, that's dumb. Like I don't need like it felt stupid to me. But then
one of them, there's like 6 of them.
Yeah,
and they're all throughout the level.
But as I played more, it didn't bother me as much because it's like it's not that hard to find. And I don't know, this game is very much like a game, like a loop, a gameplay loop. And I guess I sort of grew to appreciate the variety in that loop because, I mean, not to get ahead of ourselves, but let me just like lay it out, like what the loop is you have this first level where you're searching for something. You're searching through the level for the right star box to find the secret door, to find like whatever it is that acts as the key to open the final door. Then you go through that, and now you're in like what seems like some sort of like a dungeon type area where you're going through and you have to fight like little mini bosses and things like that. And I'm probably missing stuff here too because there's a lot. But then you get into you find like a ship, and you get on it and you play a shmup level, and you've got to choose the right path in the shmup level to get to the end of that. Then you fight like the main boss of the level. Then you get on like a scooter and do another like a space scooter and do like another little mini shmup level to get to the next zone, which is the next place we have to search for something. So like I did get to, even though like it's very simple and it's like very basic in like there's really just like a few things and it keeps cycling through them in a very predictable way. I got to realize that I wasn't getting bored as quickly as I would in other games that are similar to this one because of that variety. And because of that, I forgave my initial impression about this like searching for the secret door element. I was like, okay, it changes it up, and I know what it's like. I have a new mission in each level.
Upgrades in the game are optional and need to be purchased. You can't even refuse them, which was a confusing thing that I did because there's no dialogue choice to refuse. They just tell you, like, do you want this? And if you press A, you accept, and if B, you deny, right? Because that would be for denying the request, but with the B button. And so I
don't know why you said that.
It took me a second, but I'm with you.
I denied the first request for the power up, but I wanted it. So I said, how do I go back? Let me accept it and everything. I was trying to figure it out. I wasn't realizing that I was pressing the cancel button, although I guess in hindsight that's kind of weird that I was pressing B instead of A upon walking in. However, what an inspired choice by the designers to make the very first thing that you can purchase in this game, and probably will, create something that, yes, is stronger than your normal straightforward shot, but comes with a 45-degree angle bounce shot that needs to be like ricocheted off of walls, and like that just feels like such a late power up in a game where like, yeah, okay, like this is challenging now, like you might not hit the guy, but it's going to do a lot of damage, so make sure you get it right. It's like, no, this is like 1 minute into the game and you have the option to buy this.
Yeah, like you haven't even really gotten a chance to get used to the regular gun yet, and now you've got this like weirdest, craziest gun.
That's like the only other one, right? At least like I know that you get like more like a faster shot at one point.
You get the moon shot too, the one that like revolves around you, which is awesome.
But like it's so strange that there are so few different upgrades, and that's the first one you get.
Yeah.
Just for some clarity, because somebody will say, why didn't you mention all the other ones? There is the wave ball, which is the one that shoots through solid objects. There's the moon ball, which sends an orb around Apollo. So that's kind of cool. It's like a protection layer, and then also a shot of damage. And then
isn't there like a... Oh, you're not
the laser.
Yeah, okay.
The laser, which is just a constant stream of projectiles. And you can hold down the A button for that is it the B button? To just continuously launch that one. So that kind of solves I always need to be shooting something. Well, just hold the button down now. Those are all great and everything. My only interest was just the decision to give you a really hard thing to use right off the bat, because there is I don't even know if it's required. I guess you could call it a mini boss in that first level that you have to fight, and it's actually it's a lot easier with that 45 degree. So it's like all the regular enemies suck having to hit them with this thing, and you're probably gonna take damage, but with the Buddha statue, it's like if you don't have that 45-degree ball shot, I think you're done. I don't think you're getting it. I don't think you're killing them.
And it's even hard. It's still difficult with that shot because, like, okay, so you fight a lot of angry Buddhas in this game, but
do we know it's Buddha? I don't
mean, he's got a beard. It's not Buddha, but he's sitting that way.
Cool.
He's sitting in the Buddha way.
I'll find out what his real name is in the manual.
And there's like two like stone pillars that if you like miss-aim that bouncy ball, it's just gonna get stuck in there and it's not gonna hit anything. You gotta like time it very precisely for it to bounce off the top of that pillar and get into Angry Buddha's face. So it's still difficult.
I mean, because you fight him on... do you fight him in every level? You fight him in other levels too.
You do. I don't know if it's every level, but I mean, you pretty far into the game, you're still fighting some version of him.
Yeah. Well, so at first I did use the that ricochet bouncy ball shot, and just stood in like a corner where he wasn't hitting me. And just ricocheted around the room until it would hit him over and over again. But later on, when I didn't have that power up, I did find other ways, almost always, of cheesing it. like it was always like find the spot where he can't hit me, like get behind him or like get under him or whatever. But like, yeah, it always felt like a little bit like cheese, but it still was, still felt like a moderate challenge. But my reaction to first getting that bouncy ball though was to spend way too long trying all of the 8 buttons on the NES controller in different combinations to think of like, oh, how do you switch weapons? Because there's no way that they would just give you just this bouncy ball as your only weapon, your primary weapon in this game.
But they do.
They do.
And speaking of inspired choices, once you get inside the castle, there's sort of like different rooms, and the natural way, especially as a game designer, that you would want your main character to find their way through and navigate a castle is through these air vents, which are not clear at all, really, that is even an escape or leads to another room.
There's a dude in a room that tells you about them.
Yeah. Right, but that's okay, so fine, right? But still, you have to know that that's what he's talking about, is like that different sprite, you know? That I guess kind of looks like a vent, but then it's also like you have to take a leap of faith at it. Like, you just have to jump into it, and then you get sucked up in and come out the other end. And so, not a real complaint or whatever, but just honestly, just do a door, right? Like, how does an air vent change the gameplay experience?
I mean, I agree with you that these sprites, like, when I look at it, if you just showed me a picture of it and like we're like, yeah, that thing is supposed to be the thing you're supposed to go through, I would say like, yeah, no one's gonna that doesn't. Who would figure that out? It just looks like a random little thing. But I will say that as soon as I talked to the guy that told me to go to the vent, and I saw that, I was like, that's the vent. So like, I don't know. So like, even though when I look at it, I'm like, yeah, you're totally right. That doesn't look like a vent, but like, my brain did immediately think, okay, there it is.
Also, vents are a video game classic way of getting around places. I think you'd have to call into question Metal Gear Solid, and among others, if you're going to say that vents aren't a way to navigate.
And when you get to the end of I'm not going to question that at all.
Leave that pause in there, too.
Right. All right, I'm going to ignore that and move on. When you get to the end of the odd-numbered stages and move into the shmup, it's not some boring, just flash change of the screen, says level 2, and now you're in like some space carrier thing and fighting other space carriers. It's instead this cool scene change where there's this little room where first it's like, is that an enemy? Like, what is that? And then you
like God.
jump into it, and it's now your vehicle. Like you now, like, your sprite changes, like you're inside a vehicle, and this changes every single time you do it too. So it's not just the same tired vehicle each time. You're like, oh, I wonder what I'm gonna get each time. And so that's like a nice fresh way of spicing up the kind of transition between. And I say that because the reason why I noticed it is that in the other areas where you go into and talk to people, or go into their huts or whatever, that is just a flash of the screen, and then you're just suddenly in the middle of the room, and the person's talking to you, most likely in a floating head, or in a different part of the room, and they're just aware that you have barged in. But it like brought you into the middle of the scene. Like, you just kind of like cut into, like, you lost some information or whatever. You're not by the front door. Like, you still have to use that door to exit after the fact. So I just noticed that it's weird that this has like a nice transition of an explanation, like an in-game, you're in control explanation of like how you're moving into the shmup stages, but everything else just kind of like matter of fact, jump cuts, this happened.
Yeah, you don't land anywhere. Wait, no, you do land somewhere. But once you land and exit the room, then you're just in the world. Yeah.
Yes. So those shmup stages, was it like every other shmup you've ever played? I kind of personally felt like it was maybe a little slowed down compared to normal shmups, and made it a little easier, a little more tolerable. Could be a negative in an actual shmup for not being too easy. It's still a possibility that you'll die. But in a game where that's not the only thing, you don't want an incredibly long shmup stage where if you die, you have to start from the beginning of the stage again. And so I think they did these right, given what the rest of the game actually is. They don't overstay their welcome. The enemies aren't impossible, and it is slow. Any additional thoughts?
Because they're even these sections of the sections have sections. When you get into the shmup area, like there's one where it's like the typical crawl of a shmup, and the enemies sort of approach in the groups that they come in shmups. But then there's a point where everything speeds up, and you're kind of in a Flappy Bird area where you just have to not get crushed by these pieces of background that are coming at you, and the background goes black, and then now you're in a boss fight, and it all happens fast enough that you can forgive that it's pretty mundane. Like, there's not really much going on in these shmup stages.
Yeah, and so I was looking afterwards, like looking at some takes online about this game, and one that I kept seeing is that the shmup parts were kind of disappointing, and I totally see why compared to like some shmups we've gotten that get like a lot of power ups and a ton of interesting enemies and are a lot more fast paced. Um, and for me, this was just the right amount of shmuppiness for me because, like, yes, it was slower, which made it a little more bearable. Like, not bearable, a little easier, a little more completable because it's not the only part of this game. Like, I do want to get past these to move on to the next part. And, like, I don't, I feel like if suddenly the shmup levels were as hard, not that that's what, like, the internet's been complaining about, like, that they're not hard enough necessarily, but I feel like if they were as, like, robust and saturated as other shmups, as like a pure shmup, it would overshadow the rest of the game in a way where I'd be like, okay, well, it would be too difficult to get through for me, someone who doesn't love shmups. But yeah, I kind of didn't mind it because it was just, again, like I said about the those first levels about like finding things. It was just like a nice gameplay change of pace, and it felt like, oh, this is a nice new thing. I can see these like new weird environments with like different enemies that sort of fit the environment, even if they are just sort of like a palette swap of other ones. But like, yeah, it all just felt like it was trying to be a part of like a bigger thing, and I appreciated that.
The shmup difficulty, length, whatever, I'm all on board with. The part that I have the problem with, which I'm amazed we haven't like snuck in yet at this point, is the 50-50 chance of repeating the area if you go through the wrong door. You have an up and down door. I don't know why I would have to describe it that way. What is it? A north-south door? How do you describe it?
It's a top and bottom door.
There we go. There were some other words that I could have used, but I'm glad we got
High
there.
and low.
Upper, lower.
There, yep. A north and south door. I like that. That's how I'm going to refer to my upstairs and basement going forward. Are you going north? Now that you've enjoyed that, let's get back to what I'm talking about in the game. The problem is that you're greeted with two doors, and you might think like it's a choice, and like it might influence where you go next. But it's really just that one is correct, and the other one loops you back to the start of the stage that you just completed. And so I've got to wonder, first off, how do these doors work? Is magic involved? Do they have like bad fairies on their side, or are they using our fairies to like use this magical power where you just go through a door, but it somehow is an infinite loop back to the beginning? Like,
Well,
how does
here's
how's that door open?
I didn't, and maybe this is just because it all looked samey enough that I just took it at face value, but I didn't see it as being warped to the beginning of the room. I just saw it as you go upper or lower or north or south, and that may be the correct way to go. But
yeah,
like
I thought it was
whatever,
like one is an exit and the other is more level.
yeah. So I didn't see it as like a loop back. I just saw it as like, that's wrong. Do it again. But not
Do
again. Do more.
Right, but it is exactly the same, right? So I know you might not have noticed it while playing, but it is in theory, since it is the exact same. It's not just like they built the same thing twice. You kind of just are going back. Like you're wrapping around to the beginning of the room again, right?
I definitely see that as a problem, but I also didn't notice. I mean, I got the wrong door at least twice, probably more, but at least twice that I remember, and I also just thought like, okay, I got to keep going. Like in the first couple times, I wasn't even certain that if I had gotten the right door, that would have been the end of the level. You know, I feel like you have to play the game a few times before you start to like see through it like that and be like, wait a minute, like this one is the end of the level. Not saying that that's an excuse for it, but like that's just why I didn't notice it. I just also thought like,
Yeah.
all right, more level. I wonder what would have been in that other door, the south door.
It is a less overt, but sort of more annoying game lengthening tactic, as the like search for the correct square to shoot 5 times.
Yeah. Mike, do you know if the correct door comes down to RNG, or if it's just like if I get the wrong door and then I come back to it, is it random again, or can I just be like, okay, I know it's not this door, go to the next door?
Yeah, it is not random.
Okay, well, at least that's good. At least you only have to do it twice.
Right, and theoretically, that's kind of cool for map making if you're into that during that time of like just going forward. I won't make that mistake again. Like I'll make a note of it, and all future playthroughs will be smoother, you know?
And someone like myself who didn't realize that it was just bringing me back to the beginning might think that there's a pattern to it. And like, oh, I'll go down, down, up. Even though like realizing now that I'm just forcing myself to play it twice.
I think it'd be funny if you were like, the pattern's probably down, 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 up. You're just doing that same down like 7 times for no reason.
Yeah, it's funny that you played the level like 13 times and didn't notice that it was different.
They all look the same. It all looks the same.
Yeah,
I'm joking too that you took the door 13 times. And to be clear, it's not, as far as I know, that is not a hint that can be relayed to you by somebody earlier on, which would have been ideal, right? A secret room even that could parse that information for you. But instead, you're just kind of left to a coin flip. And believe it or not, the first time ever I played this, I flipped correctly and had to find out about it after the fact. I flipped correctly every single time.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't know what the odds are on that, but that's pretty good.
5 levels where you got to flip?
Yeah, but sometimes
I don't know why I'm
there's...
saying that as if like once you tell me, I'll know the odds. I have no idea what the odds are. But...
I don't know how I didn't beat the game, but I'm saying there's not just one per level either. You know, there's multiple rooms, so you have to, like, for instance, in the very first one, you know, I had to guess correctly twice before able to, you know, finish even that first world. When you get to the boss, it doesn't switch back to the platforming thing. In fact, you never fight a boss in the side-scrolling view. You only fight them in the shmup style. However, you're not in kind of whatever vehicle you choose, whether that's like your custom jetpack or a cool spaceship. Instead, you're on like some kind of glider, and it's just you, a black background, and an awesome boss sprite. Some of them aren't as awesome, but it's still like they definitely were able to do more because they only had you and the black background, so they were able to animate more. I just think that there was a missed opportunity here, though, that every boss is just kind of like this awesome design, and then but this one shoots projectiles like this. You know, there was like this one shoots 3 at a time, or like, oh, this one shoots big ones and followed up by small ones. It's like, okay, cool and all, but I just never felt like that was really the core gameplay experience, right? Like all the other enemies aren't necessarily like that, and so it just felt like, at least even with the final boss, right? Like switch it up a little, but they did not.
Yeah, I mean, there's at least one near the beginning, and I can't remember exactly what the design was, but like the pattern, it was just projectiles again, but it was sort of shooting out like these boundary projectiles that you could either stay outside of or stay inside of, and then it was an eye. It was just like an eye monster, and then it would not randomly. It would sometimes shoot out its eye as well. So that was at least like a unique pattern, but I agree there was a lack of variety here as well.
And shout out to the bosses Xexyz, Goruza, Laboza, Horza, and Goruza, which all look like early Pokemon like Parasect, Pidgeot, Steelix, Kingdra, and Tyranitar. So I don't know, like it's really eerie when you look at them. Actually, like Laboza, I know that the coloring's not the same, but like that's basically Steelix's sprite. So what's going on there?
I gotta relook at these guys.
Look at them in the manual too, though, because it shrunk down. It kind of looks closer to the scale of the Pokemon sprite, so you'll see it for sure. But otherwise, like the boss fights, yeah, I mean, like they're not easy, they're not a cakewalk or anything, but they're just not interesting either.
I don't see it in the manual.
Page 14. Page 14.
I only have 12 pages.
You're screwed. You're screwed.
What the heck? The manual ends at page 13.
That's funny.
Page 14 is the back.
Yeah, 14's the image map, 15's the bosses.
So I see Genix, Demix, Shrix, Camix, Xexyz, Zebix, Dorix, Dolphix, Gardix, and Verdix.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I see too. But those are the
They're the cyborg riders given by Queens.
Right, yeah.
But that's the last page for me.
But I remember thinking, I don't know if this is even in the episode, but I do remember thinking that like, wow, this manual doesn't really feel like there could be more to this manual.
And there is.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. I can work off of what you're talking about though with the you're talking about all the vehicles, Gen X.
They're cyborg
tricks. Yeah, cyborg riders. Sorry, that's a pretty cool name, right? That's like
that's where I got the cyborg thing from. So
yeah, so there you go. But here's my question to you. Okay, to go back to the very first thing we were talking about with the plot of this game. Nuclear wars and natural disasters caused the population to decrease dramatically, and only 5 islands exist. But apparently, for hundreds of years, the faeries, everybody that lives on these 5 islands have lived peacefully. So why do they have all of this military equipment?
I mean, that I don't see any guns on these things.
Maybe that's what's causing the peace. Is like.
Oh,
they've been pointing these weapons at their civilians
A well-armed civilian population will discourage tyranny.
It's really worth mentioning how awesome the sprites for these bosses are, though. I'm looking at that King Xeu one again that I was talking about, and no, I'm just saying, like, even in game, like the one that's a giant seahorse that also has
the guns.
It's holding a gun, and then it also has a gun on its tail.
That is my favorite one. Yeah,
that's really heavy.
So badass.
I'd like to see him just show up in another game, like just not even connected.
I thought you were gonna. I don't know why I thought this, but like I just want to see that guy show up at my birthday party.
Doesn't everybody want Xexyz characters to show up, Chuck E. Cheese animatronic style at their birthday party?
Absolutely.
They got rid of all those now. The animatronics.
FNAF killed it all.
Yeah. Which is funny because I feel like the same audience likes Five Nights at Freddy.
I think so, yeah.
All right, back on topic. We should probably do something that we do every week on Nostalgia, so it's not really a surprise. But surprise, it's the Essential Games List. To start my Essential Games List vote, I'm going to quote a comment I saw on YouTube by Tony, aka 30, which he wrote 8 years ago. And so maybe you're listening to the podcast, but did you also think that a YouTube comment you wrote 8 years ago was going to show up on a podcast? It says, one of my all-time favorite NES games. I was never able to get past the first level, but the game fascinated me nonetheless. And I'm not sure that I understand, first off, Tony's inability to finish the first level. Maybe just didn't dive deep into the game or whatever. Also, though, how he judges his favorite NES games if he was only ever able to explore a couple of rooms in the first stage. All that to say, I think I have like the opposite take, and that by the end of the first level, I kind of knew this wasn't going to be one of my all-time favorite NES games, and it wasn't going to be an essential game. By first level, I truly mean everything that encompasses, too. The shmup and everything, like that first world. Once I finished the, as Joe mentioned, gameplay loop, and noticed that it was going to be that again out, I felt like there was a missed opportunity to maybe put in some more RPG-like elements and, by the end of this game, really soup up your character. I felt like I explored enough of the game to know that it wasn't for me early on, and then as I continued to play, I just got more frustrated with it. At first you're charmed and intrigued, and then you start to go under the hood and realize, oh, that's what it is. And so that's all it is to me, but I didn't hate my time playing the game, so this would kind of, I think, fall into my play it section, if anything, just because it does offer so many different types of gameplay between the platformer, action, adventure, shmup game. Like, there's enough systems going on here that it's an interesting lookout on the NES. Sean?
Yeah, this game does a lot of things. There's a lot of different ways to interact with this game. There's a lot of cool seahorse gun holders, but it doesn't do any of those things all that great. I think that the shmup parts are competent at best. I think that the sort of walk around and go into rooms part those are fine. Nothing's terribly broken, but nothing also really stands out that much. And I really hate searching and trying to hit the right star box to get any further in the game. I do like the weird characters that you interact with, whether they're just like a box that you talk to, or a weird fairy in a bathtub. I think it's got personality, but the game itself is kind of just like they just threw everything at the wall. So no, it's not essential.
Joe.
I pretty much agree with what both of you are saying. On like a granular level, there are a lot of things in this game. As I was playing, I was like, yeah, this isn't like blowing me away, this part, but it's like it functions, it works, it's still moderately fun. But I don't know if I have this like weird, just like recency bias, but like as a whole package, I did really enjoy this game. It's like some of the simplicity of some parts of it, and like the gameplay loop, and even like just how it's not super long makes it like a nice bite-sized little adventure, similar to like not really similar in other ways, but similar in that like bite-sized completable adventure thing to like Rygar or other games in the past. And I famously also voted Rygar onto the Essential Games list, I think alone. And I might throw this one a pointless Essential Games vote here. I did kind of come out of this thinking like that was a really cool thing. Like despite some of the things that we think like it might have been able to do better, like I think we've played a lot of games that try to do that have this feel to it where it's like, okay, you got to search for this thing, and it feels like other games we've played that are bad, but it seems to do it right.
I like that.
So
yeah.
I'm going to vote it essential in like the worst explanation of why ever, but like I am going to vote it essential. I know it doesn't matter, but doing that anyways.
Moral victories are still moral victories.
But Joe, you are saying that you would have voted essential if it was on the line, right?
I would never change my vote because of the other votes. This podcast is too important to me to to screw with the integrity of it like that.
Right. No amount of money could influence you, right? Like no millions of dollars.
There's very few amounts of money that would influence me to do that. Speaking of money, though, one thing we didn't talk about, I want to live in the economy of this post-apocalyptic Xexyz world because you are only ever given money. Anything you ever want to buy, even if you don't need it, just buy it. Yeah. Just buy it. You have more cash than you know what to do with.
Broken economy.
Yeah.
That's what peace looks like, people. Yeah. Unlimited money. To finish out this week's episode, we did get a write-in. Believe it or not, you can do that too. You can ask us questions. We'll answer them. It takes us a while, though, because this question was asked a few weeks ago, and so I'm sorry that we're just getting around to it now. But Late to Gaming wrote into us, that's the username, wrote in, after playing through so much of the NES library, what do each of you think has been the worst game so far? And so keep in mind, worst game so far doesn't have to mean like it could also just be like the biggest disappointment. It could be a lot of things. I'm going to interpret that as like what was my personal like I got no joy from this game whatsoever experience.
I mean, there's definitely several levels to this question because like I think games like I Can Remember and Perfect Fit, like those are just pointless games that should have never been made, but they didn't anger me in the same way that some did. Like I'm still not over like what Ghostbusters did to like, oh, this must be the perfect way to make Ghostbusters game. Like I think that was probably the most like what the hell were you thinking decision. Deadly Towers is up there as just like one of the least enjoyable experiences. And then you've got stuff like the Rob games that never really would have worked and are just kind of silly, like Stack Up. Like, but if we're going like the worst game that we've played so far, it really is tough. And So I feel like I have to go with one that I already mentioned here. I think it's got to be Deadly Towers, to be honest. Like, I just hated every moment of that game.
I knew you were going to pick that one, too. I remember you specifically really hated. We all hated that game, but you really hated that one.
I did. I do. And I will.
No, nobody could actually. Yeah, truly, nobody can convince Sean because on our Patreon only Discord, somebody did try to defend it at lengthy paragraphs, just for the sake of it, and none of us bought the bait. Joe, worst?
This is a tough one for me too, but I mean, all right, I'll put the obligatory, like, obviously, like, stack up is the worst or whatever in there. But like, if we're not counting, like, you know, we are talking about like what I had the worst time with. I've got two answers, and this first one isn't my answer, but it's an honorable mention because this is a game that I grew up with and I liked when I was a kid, and it was very disappointing to revisit 1942. Because I remember just like me and my brother like loving that game, and I played it again. I'm like, I'm just watching this thing scroll really slowly with to this beeping. But honestly, I think that the ones that I have, like, maybe it's not even just like one answer either, but like the ones that I have the least fun with, at least at a glance, maybe if I keep looking I'll find something that's worse, but are the ones that are like track and field and stadium events and things like that. What was the one? Was like was it Winter Games?
Winter Games.
Yeah, you gotta like tangle up your fingers to hit the buttons in the right order to like just do like a ski jump or whatever. Like those I just don't enjoy those. And like I think they've aged even worse in my opinion, because I think when I first played, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. But now if I ever go back and play one, I'm just like, it doesn't feel like I'm playing a video game.
Yeah.
It feels like I'm inputting like information into a computer.
and you know what? Maybe this just speaks to how I've been approaching playing these games. I'm approaching them too job-like. Like when I was playing like track and field and those like mini game centric ones, it didn't really rub me the wrong way as much because it's like, oh, you know, I'll just play this for a little bit. I get the gist. I can talk about it for however long we record these episodes. But like something like Deadly Towers, like I had to subject myself to that for an amount of time that I didn't have to for something kind of as mindless and cheap as these track and field games. So I get it, and I just wanted to throw that out there.
I will remind you both that I love the track and field game.
Yeah.
I do know.
Get it out of your mouth, please. Keep track and field out of your all right, and then okay, so what's funny is like, yeah, Stack Up is not a video game, so I didn't even put it there on my list of considerations.
You just have to say it during this. That's all.
Yeah,
I'll have to say it.
Joe, you're right. And then Taboo: The Sixth Sense is a video game, and it does its job, so it's not a bad video game. It's definitely not even the worst I've ever played. I was surprised to see that on people's list because it's telling you your future.
Wait, are you
giving you your fortune?
Wait, no. That's also not a video game. That's an NES application. That is a tarot reading utility.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was looking for, but I wanted to be controversial and say that it was a step above Stack Up. All right, and then I was looking at my list of games, and surprisingly, like a lot of the ones that were in the running are the most recent. Okay, like I know that Joe was moderately fond of this game, but Snoopy's Silly Sports Spectacular really pissed me off, especially when I found out
sort of like a stadium event. But
right,
I did sort of like it.
Yep. When I found out that was just Donald Duck in Japan, though, and they just made it Snoopy, like I would have taken the Donald Duck game, but not the Snoopy game. That's where I draw the line. And so no, that's not my pick. Then I was just thinking tag team wrestling.
Yeah.
That early wrestling game we got where you have to do the menus.
That was atrocious.
to do your grappling. So that's up there for sure. Then I went to Kid Cool. Because that's another one that's pretty recent and just bothered me because I thought we were better than this now. And it just gave me Kid Cool. Maybe it's the K for cool. Gave me all the vibes of something that was a unlicensed NES game, the kind of like Bible Adventures or something. Like you would get Kid Cool. And we weren't supposed to play the unlicensed games. We've actually haven't played a lot of the ones that are supposedly good because we're only playing the ones that were chronologically released in North America. and yet we still had to play Kid Cool, so I'm a little angry about that. But my actual pick for the worst so far in the library is Dash Galaxy in the Alien Asylum.
Oh my god. Yeah, that was weird.
That game was hot garbage and came out around the same time as Kid Cool. So really shows you just how far we've grown. I don't think anything ever actually...
Did I play this game?
I don't think you were there.
I don't think you were there.
What the heck is this game?
Yeah, this was such a strange
like MS
game.
Paint.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we said that in the episode, too. Dash Galaxy in the Alien Asylum. It's like, what happened?
I want to play this now.
Yeah, check it out. That's not a game I think fondly of. And there are, we're 300 plus episodes in. We should have something that isn't unanimous, and we don't. Well, all three of us came with different answers, but I have no doubt in my mind about my pick. That's kind of scary that there's no other game that matches up.
I definitely blocked this out of my memory, but now watching it again, I do remember that this was a terrible game, and I just remember how poorly the jumping felt when you were in the side-scrolling areas, and you've got this weirdly photorealistic guy walking around. It just feels wrong. Everything feels wrong.
Yeah, the more I'm watching footage of this, every minute or so that I scrub through, it's it gets more and more like a fever dream, just mess of pixels. Yeah. It just switched from a blue screen with a number 6 on it with a bunch of square green blocks to then suddenly a pink screen with a grid in the background with just weird sprites of things all over the place, like a mess. Not even in
it was
there's
a mess.
just I can't even describe just how much of a garbage dump of sprites this looks
we
like.
We protected it from you. We protected you from
Thank
it.
you. Yes, you protected it from me.
You're the one who knocks.
Just keep in mind, we've played so many games, and so far, 70% of them are on our skip it list. So just, know that those are probably the best episodes, too. So look forward to that. Look forward to more of the worst NES games, and please continue to ask us questions, because we'll give them this kind of time on the show.